Anyway, it's coming. Before I start, before I turn the lights on, I just wanted to thank every one of you here who has made time to come and listen to us telling stories and sharing our fairy tales, saving lives, and especially the TED team. Christoph, wherever you are, 3 cheers to you, mate. I'm Bremley Lyngdoh, and I come from the land where the clouds come home in Meghalaya, northeast India. And indeed, we have 55 feet of rainfall a year. That makes it world number 1. Rain, rain, rain for 6 months. So my other code name is Rain Man, so I'm very at home here. But before I start and before I turn my light on, I just want to recognize those 77 lights that went off on July 22nd in Oslo. So if you take a minute of silence with me and stand up before we start, I would really appreciate it. Just to remember those lives we lost and those lights that went off, 77 lights. Thank you for just a minute. Just in time. Thank you very much. So, out of that darkness, let there be light. I've particularly chosen the black light because we're going to turn the black light on and let there be light. So, my story. I'm very impressed. In just half an hour, I've been in your school. I've met students representing 15 countries. And I was told that you have more than 100 countries represented here. And I feel like I'm in the United Nations General Assembly, but with new leaders, future leaders of our planet. So I think you're in a very good space. I just want to share a little story that exactly 11 years ago, I was India's representative to the United Nations Millennium Summit. And on 28 September 2000, at about 12:30, I was addressing the General Assembly to a different crowd of people. But you're the same. You're going to be world leaders, depending where you go back home, whether you're going to be politicians, business people, political, social, environmental, economists, whoever you are, your light will continue to shine because you're in a great institution, perhaps one of the best in this part of the world, even though it has a lot of rain. But I feel very warm and inspired because it's a different environment. I'm not addressing politicians and not reading a speech that I had to prepare to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and get it cleared through all the diplomatic agents. I'm just telling you my story, sharing you what's been going on since the year 2000, September 28. It's been 11 years. So I'm just here to share my journey with you. I've not made any prepared speech, anything, but I'm going to stick to the 15 minutes. So, the story about Worldview Impact. 28 September 2011, how the times have gone by. Our mission has 5 prongs. First is to address climate change. So it's a very complex situation. We try to look at addressing the triple bottom line. You can't just talk about the environment because you need to talk about the social and economic, peace and conflict resolution and health. I've just come back from Sri Lanka, working with an amazing man. I don't know if you know him. His name is Arne Fjortov. He's from Norway. And as a matter of fact, I was inspired to create this organization after I finished my research at the London School of Economics. And I was here about 3 years ago celebrating Arne's 70th birthday in the Norwegian Parliament in Oslo. So this is thanks to Arne, who's right now in Sri Lanka. I was just with him 48 hours ago. And he's working on the reconciliation process after the civil war in the beautiful island of Sri Lanka. And as you know, Norway is very involved in the peace process and has been so for a long time. So let there be peace in Sri Lanka. So that's why it's very important for us when you work in post-conflict countries to look at reconciliation and healing. And that starts from opening up your mind and oneness. Forget your selfish profits and gains. Think as human beings coming together. Arne and I met in 1999 in Bangkok at a United Nations conference talking on the rights to development, a human right, the rights to development. And Arne invited me to come to Sri Lanka, where he had a project called Paradise Farm. These principles that we have here is based on the model that Arne started on Paradise Farm. And Paradise Farm is an experimental farm where Tamil and Sinhalese women work together. Leave your egos and your hatred outside the gates. When you enter the gates of Paradise Farm, you're human beings. And together you create organic vegetables, trees, herbs together and heal. And there's a research being done in the United States where all the people in prisons who have been engaged in gardening and working with nature, when they get out of prison, they never recommit crime. It's kind of downloading your system and healing with Mother Earth. So, same thing if you've read the autobiography of Nelson Mandela, the man who went from prisoner to president. In his autobiography, he was telling that how he was growing tomato plants in Robinson Island, where he was locked up for 27 years. It kept his mind sane. He took these tomatoes that died and gave them a proper burial. That was in his autobiography. You can read it. So again, Worldview Impact, as you can see from our logo, has 3 arrows spinning. I come from a warrior tribe in northeast India, and it's very hard for me to go to the tribal leader and say, let's talk about sustainable development. So like, what the hell is that? So, but as warriors from my tribe, we use arrows to hunt. So I go to the tribal chief and say, sustainable development is about taking 3 arrows in your bow and firing them at the same time. The first arrow is the environmental arrow, the second is the economic, and the third is the social. The same target, and this target is the green, and it represents forestry, regeneration, and working with conservation goals. Of course, the arrows are spinning anti-clockwise, representing that we want to reverse the damage on the planet. And they also represent clean energies, wind turbine, which we work on. And lastly, blue is water that gives us life. Without water, ain't no life. But you're lucky here because you got lots of rain. But there are places in Africa that there's drought and people dying, and there's not even a single drop of water to drink. So use your resources wisely. We're working in 9 countries now, pilot countries, and of course we want to link ourselves with existing initiatives like the MDGs that were created when we were at the General Assembly 11 years ago, the Millennium Development Goals, and 2015 is coming up. The promises that our world leaders made have not been accomplished, and all this credit crunch and another recession looming, it's making those targets go back, and it's really sad. But I want to address the role that young people, young leaders have played in implementing the MDGs, just like you and me on the ground, without any political or institutional support. The other group that we align ourselves is UNEP, the United Nations Environment Program, which is based in Nairobi. And they have a 1 billion tree campaign. And as you know, our warrior, our green belt warrior from Kenya has just passed on. So Waringa Timathai has gone, but her legacy lives on. So we need to plant millions more trees to honor the work that she has done while she has been on the planet. Then you must have heard of the Global Compact, the UN, where they bring corporations together that are doing good things with the planet. So we try to align with them. And lastly, the Earth Charter, which is all about embracing the Earth and the planet together. These are some of the supporters that we've been working with in the past 3 years. I met Christoph at the START Summit in St. Gallen, and that's how we've been keeping in touch, and that's the reason why I'm here. And we've been working with a lot of other universities since we have been launched from the London School of Economics. Obviously, we're working with a lot of young economists from there. And these are some of the projects we've completed since 2008. I'll share you a little bit more about it. So local projects, national projects, and international projects, and all addressing green jobs through agroforestry, clean energy, water, food security, and mobilizing young people in the developing countries to connect with those in the developed world like ourselves. These are some of the current projects. We're building schools in Uganda. We are mentoring kids in Richmond Park Academy to buy tea from Sri Lanka, just like what Arne is doing with Norwegian school here, buying tea from the farm made by young Sri Lankans and marketing it in Norway. And the money they make, they reinvest in the projects, or they go for nice school trips, Norwegian kids in different schools. And we've also developed an equal trade project in Paradise Farm. Next year is going to be the 20 years anniversary of the Earth Summit in Rio in 1992 when Agenda 21 was born. So we're going to prepare a delegation to go there to look what promises governments have made and how can we move ahead after 20 years of talking about saving the planet. This is interesting. I wish we could do one here. Of course, our projects are thousands of miles away, but how do we engage young people in universities around the world who care about climate change and reducing their carbon footprint? So I came up with the idea of dancing, because I love to dance. I heard some Latin music. I think we should do that later. So it's about, if you are in the UK, you pollute 10 tons a year, average. So if I want to be carbon negative in 1 year, I have to plant 10 trees. But if I go to 10 parties and plant 10 trees, then I also learn the music and the dances from 10 different countries, and I plant 10 trees, and I learn 10 different styles. And that's the carbon neutral dance. So we charge £15 for each person coming to the dance. It's like what you pay to go to a club anyway. But you get exposure to Ghana and what's going on in Ghana, and you dance to the Ghanaian drums. If it's the project in Brazil, you dance to Brazil samba. If it's the project about Argentina, you dance to Argentine tango. If the project is in Mexico, you dance to Mexican salsa. If it's project in India, you dance to some Bollywood music. By the end of the year, you've been to 10 parties, dancing to the music and the cultures of 10 countries, and you planted 10 trees, so you neutralize your emissions as an individual. The power of one. Obviously, if you're an artist, if you can play a guitar, if you can make sculpture, if you can do drawings, you could also contribute. So Karen David is an artist born in my home, Shillong, made a song called Shillong Shillong and donated it to us. And now for every song downloaded with £1, a tree is planted in her village. So artists can also make a difference. And that's a rubber tree that we're growing in Sri Lanka. And a different kind of milk, Sebastian, it's latex. And how we're trying to address public health from our project is that from the rubber trees, you can make contraceptives, gloves, boots, which can directly address, public health to protect people and lives. This is our rubber project in Meghalaya, in my home. We train a lot of women because we believe that when you teach a woman, you teach a whole village. A woman always invests back. And studies have been done around the world with microfinance. It works very well with women because when a woman borrows money, she always pays back 98.99% because if she defaults, she knows that her kids will suffer. So a group of women come together, pitch in money, finance their project, and it accumulates interest. Sadly, it doesn't work with men. No matter where we are, we tend to drink it up, and we default on payments. So I think the women should take over some of these projects. So this is what we do. We plant rubber trees because rubber trees produce latex for 35 years. They take 5 years to grow and then produce latex for 30 years. And they store a lot of carbon because their roots go 30 meters deep, and they can survive in very hot conditions and dry lands. And that's a project in Sri Lanka. And they can produce a lot of jobs. And the current project in Sri Lanka is we're working to reforest 3,500 hectares of dry land. So we need to plant 3 million rubber trees and create at least 5,000 jobs. Well, we're starting now on the ground. That's why I just came back. And we'll go back. But I cannot hold a remote control from London or from Norway and say, plant a tree. It won't work. You need to be on the ground. So I try to spend a lot of my time on the ground and working in the field because it gives you energy and you see things happening. And these are the rubber trees in my home in Meghalaya. Meghalaya in Sanskrit means where the clouds come home. Now you understand why we get so much rain. These 10,000 of them growing, and we've been collecting money from different parties and dances around the world, and we've planted about 10,000 trees now in the communities I work. And this is one of the chiefs, because we work on tribal land, so we use his land. And I took my friend Chris Stone along from England to do a documentary on his land. But the irony is that in some of the areas where I'm working, there's also conflict with the mining of uranium. It's a classic Avatar story. Here we are trying to plant trees and protect standing sacred forests that our ancestors have kept for thousands of years. My government wants to cut down forests and fight climate change from nuclear energy. How does that make sense? You're going to Fight climate change by removing thousands of hectares of rainforest, mining uranium, and fight climate change? That doesn't sound right. So anyway, the battle continues, but it's the classic Avatar story. But we need these chiefs to be inspired. And creating jobs for him is very important to win the heart of his people. We also get involved at the international level in meetings like climate change COPs, the Conference of Parties, with the Kyoto Protocol. This was in Poznan, then there was the one in Copenhagen that collapsed, then the Cancun, and this year will be in Durban. So, diplomats are just kicking the football around. They're not having a concrete Green Deal that they've been talking about. But I know Norway is working a lot and has the power to influence, given that they have a huge oil fund that could be invested in mega green projects around the world, creating green jobs for young people, especially in the poor countries. We've also been getting awards. This is the BRIC Award in the UK last year. This is where I met Christoph at the Ernst & Young Start Summit in St. Gallen, where he studied for his bachelor's in 2009. I don't know where he is, but they were all young people starting their own green business, and they were just talking about the problems you face to raise capital, to raise credit, especially when the credit crunch, how to get financing from a bank, how to make a pitch for your business plan. It's very hard because if you talk about social enterprise, you're talking social enterprise because you don't know how to run a real enterprise. No, it's different. You have to make a difference, you have to make a profit, but then you give back. So many people don't understand the meaning of social enterprise. They think that we're just about the social, but actually investments have to be paid back, and you have to run it like a real business to be sustainable economically, environmentally, and socially. And I did a TED talk also in Russia, a different kind of audience, about 200 to 500 Russian oligarchs, and I had to convince them about how to start the green revolution in Mother Russia. Interesting, but very, very, very challenging because you had to slow down as simultaneous translation was happening into Russia. Okay, we plant trees, but also, if you guys are a rainforest right here, we need to protect you because you store a lot of carbon. If you're a rainforest, we need to protect standing trees. So there's a negotiation called RED, Reduce Emissions from Degradation and Deforestation, where you pay the farmers who own land where trees are standing so they don't cut down those trees. If somebody wants to build a road or a dam, so you calculate the carbon. If you are a forest here, how much each of you store, calculate the money, and pay that money to the person who owns the land, not to cut down the trees, to leave them standing. So that's what we need to do in Brazil. And also we try to negotiate and involve people like Kofi Annan in the Global Humanitarian Forum in Geneva, because we need leaders like these guys who are retired to engage them in different kind of other projects working with humanitarian work. This is a Tango for Trees for our project in Argentina. So we involve bands to perform, and the money we raise, we can plant trees. So anybody here can dance tango? And we're working in Kenya also with small villages with the Maasai community to look at community reforestation and Maasai land to create sustainable livelihoods. And these guys, we brought them to the London School of Economics, and they all speak English. I'm very impressed. And we build schools because it's important, before you start a big project, is to train the kids so that they can take care of the project when they grow up, because our projects run for 35 years. I'll be dead and gone, but if you build institutions for the little guys, they will be taking over the project when we're gone. So, and these are the little guys that we need to invest in. So, and we try to give them green scholarships so we can train them to be economists or working or forester or soil or water experts. So when they get the training, they can come back to the villages and make an impact in the community. And this is another school that we've built, a secondary school. The other one was a primary school. And we also try to engage the Commonwealth countries in London, all the young people studying in London who come from Commonwealth countries, to advise their governments on changing the policy with regards to climate change and their role as young people and what they feel that the government should do. And in India, we try to, my country is huge, we have 350 million young people. That's the size of the United States. So in order to make an impact, you need to vote and choose the right leaders to represent you in Parliament. So that's important to bring all the young people from around the country to work on a policy to advise the government of what we want India to be in the next few years. Media is very important, and we try to work with MTV Switch because they're all over the world to convey the stories that young people are doing on the planet. And lastly, I want to just show you one of the trees that we've planted from, this is a rubber tree. It's just been taken from the nursery. We name all the trees for all the people that have come to all these dances. So someday when they come and visit these projects, they'll see that that's their tree. But all this is happening because we try to make an impact at the very grassroots to create these positive change that have 5-pronged benefits going back to the mission in addressing environmental, social, economic, public health, and most important, addressing conflict resolution. So with that, I want to end by saying a quote from Eleanor Roosevelt, who says, the future, this is what President Kennedy said, the future promise of any nation depend on the present prospects of their youth. So if the young people are charged up and energized and want to make a difference, they can, and that nation will be alive and strong. And Eleanor Roosevelt said about dreams, the future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. And that's Eleanor Roosevelt, the most powerful first lady in the White House during the time when President Roosevelt was around. And she was the one who crafted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Again, I repeat her quote, the future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. Thank you very much.